Hello, here I am for another Quattro Minuti con Casanova. I'm way far out in Venice in the district of Castello, kind of near the public gardens called Giardini. So that's just over that way. But here I am in the Campo San Iseppo, which is the sort of Venetian dialect for San Giuseppe, or Saint Joseph. And this is the church behind me of San Iseppo. For quite a while it was under scaffolding, so it's quite nice now that you can actually see the facade. Now, where the buildings are here to my left, there used to be gardens. If you look at the Ugo map from 1729, you can see that there were these large gardens, kind of a series of gardens back here. And that's where our man Casanova went. He tells about meeting a young woman here for a picnic. I have to give a little bit of backstory. While Casanova was living on the island of Murano, he was living there so that he could be close to the two nuns that he was in love with who were in the convent. And of course it was very difficult for him to see them, sometimes actually impossible for him to see them. He used the help from a woman named Laura, who would deliver messages and so on back and forth to the women in the convent. Well, at one point Casanova said, "I need a room here on Murano," and so Laura said, "Oh, I have this room, and in fact my daughters can be the ones to cook dinner for you and to clean the room and bring you linens and things like this." So Laura's oldest daughter, Tonina, was the one who would do this for Casanova. And Casanova was very much in love with his nuns, so he really didn't notice Tonina, who was just a teenager at the time. Well, there was one very terrible time where Casanova was completely unable to see the women he was in love with, and then there was this terrible rain, and he came home and he was so depressed, and Tonina came in after the rain, and the dress was just sort of clinging to her, and suddenly his eyes were opened, and he realized, oh, Tonina looks pretty good. So he kind of started a relationship with her, a very homey kind of relationship where she would cook and clean and he would be there with her, and they ended up sleeping together too. She eventually got pregnant. Casanova actually says that this time of his life was one of the most tranquil and most calm relationships that he had. He really enjoyed his time with young Tonina. Well, Casanova had this friend who then one time was visiting and met Tonina and said, "Oh, she's just lovely. She's a lovely young woman. Let's kind of make a deal here. What if I become the lover of Tonina, and then when she has the baby, I will pay for the baby and make sure that it has everything it needs. I will stay with her for at least 1 year and maybe longer. And after that time, I will also give her money for a dowry so later she can marry." And Casanova thought, "Oh, well, I don't know, I really like her, but this is a good deal for her." And they asked Tonina, and she kind of said, "Okay." And so she went off with this other guy, she had the baby, everything really turned out quite well. Well, now Casanova had no one to keep house for him. So then Laura, the mother, brought along her next daughter, Barbarina, who was quite young. In fact, Casanova said maybe she hadn't quite reached puberty yet. So for us modern readers, that really makes us uncomfortable, but for the time, it wasn't quite so strange. And Casanova writes about coming on a picnic here with Barbarina. The picnic was prepared by Laura, the mother, who knew about all of this. In fact, it was kind of good for her daughters because they got dowries out of it so then they could marry later, which was a really good thing for young women then. But Casanova describes being here in the garden, and there was a fig tree. So Barbarina climbed up the fig tree, and Casanova looked up at her and said, "Oh, look at this nice fig. Has anybody plucked this fig before?" And of course he wasn't really talking about the fruit on the tree. Barbarina soon ended up in his bed, and I guess they had quite a nice time together. But it was very, very shortly after this that Casanova was arrested. So that was the end of the relationship with these young girls. But apparently they were quite happy with him. They got dowries for marriages, the mother was happy, and that all happened here at the gardens of San Iseppo.